himself said the elections were faulty, if you recall. After you won in 2003, rigged. You know you won in 2007, rigged. You know you won in 2011, changed, rigged. What will you do?
This is the third and last one for me, since after it, I will not present myself again for election into the office of the president.
So he didn't break down in tears. He just broke down in pity for the system, for the country, and he said, "I'll never do it again, never do it again."
So when this thing happened in 2011, it was worse than what had happened in 2007. It was worse than what had happened in 2003. So it is this thing, it is not the bitterness that he lost that worried him. And then he said, well, it will appear now that nothing is going to change this thing. It's like, well, it's a country of over 150 million. I have tried my best. I have made my own contribution. My contribution is not recognized, and surely it's better to keep off from this.
This is his eldest daughter, Magajia. She suffered all her life with sickle cell disease, and then a confluence of events. A few days with the announcement, she also died. So that shook him very much. But I would say that the death of his daughter shook him more than the loss of the election.
That is what they call sickle cell anemia. There are people who are SA, there are people who are SS. So I think when the developed countries found about this sickle cell disease, they tried to stop marriage between AS or SS so that they don't have this sickle cell anemia. My first wife, my late first wife, unfortunately, I think she is SA or AS, and I'm AS. So my two children, my first daughter and my first son, happened to be SS, and they died of it. It was hard, but when I gave to my second wife, I asked who introduced her to me that she must be AA, so that if my child picked the S from me, he could only pick S from A from her. So AS is not normally susceptible to the anemia.
So in 2013-2014, you decided to team up with the other opposition parties. How did that come about?
The PDP. We are so confident that nobody could remove them. And I think they just ignored even being careful. So we persuaded the other parties. The CPC, Congress for Progressive Change, which I was leading, the ACN from Southwest mostly, ABGA from Southeast geopolitical zones. I said, until we came together, there was no way we could remove PDP. I persuaded them, they agreed. Aswaju, Tinubu, From the north, from CPC, this was myself. And then from the southeast, Abga, Rocha, Okorocha. So we got people from various parties to come together.
Now you had a strong opposition party, but you almost got killed before the election.
I think Kwankwaso was very generous. He gave me an armored vehicle, a Land Rover. He said I should be using it because he believes that the competition I am going on, I think there are people who really wouldn't like to compete with me. They would like to eliminate me. I said, okay. So I had to go to Kano, and I was using that Jeep. And a vehicle near the secretariat, federal secretariat in Kaduna, wanted to overtake us. My escort stopped them. But before we go on that overhead bridge, which was parallel to our filling station on the right as you are leaving Kaduna for Zaria, they just below the thing. And when I looked, I saw the pieces of human beings. People who have been blasted by the bomb. The chap we were traveling with in the car on my left was thrown on my left because the bag, you know, the crash bag which the vehicle have, some of them, the one on my side was blown. The one on his side, I think, was not blown, so he was thrown on my left. And when I looked, I saw blood on my trousers and on my gown. But none of us, the two people in the vehicle and two of us behind, four of us, none of us were injured. But somehow I saw blood because of the number of people killed outside and was because of the bomb. And I came out, I was concerned with the dead people, but some people stopped a vehicle, pushed me inside and drove me home. And that was the end of it. This is how efficient the Nigerian security agents are up to today.
It is now my pleasure to hand over the certificate of return as prepared by the National Convention Planning Committee to the winner of the All Progressives Congress presidential primary, General Muhammadu Buhari, retired.
Throughout the campaigns, and we went around in buses a lot, you know. We traveled from state to state, you know, and I recall in particular, we were at I think it was in Zamfara, where we saw these young people, and this always happened, of course, pressing themselves against the window of the bus that were traveling, you know, shouting, say, Baba, you know, Baba, Oyoyo, and all of that. And he said, look at the faces of these young people. He says, the expectations are high, very, very high. He says, and they expect us to do magic the moment we get into office. You know, look at all of them.
Here in Kaduna, we voted for General Muhammadu Buhari, not because he's a northerner or a Muslim, but because we believe he's going to bring change. He's going to stop the insecurity, the corruption, and the callousness and the impunity.
That Muhammadu Buhari
having satisfied the requirements of the law and scored the highest number of votes, is hereby declared the winner and is in turn elected.
I, Muhammad Buhari, do solemnly swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and that I will preserve...
Well, don't forget that I tried 3 times. 2003, I think 2007, and 2011. And I ended up in Supreme Court 3 times. The first time, I went to address the pressmen and some Nigerians that were very curious. I was expecting sympathy, but the group laughed at me. So I said, okay, God day. And God sent technology. With permanent voters card, PVC, it's very difficult, to do what politicians used to do in Nigeria.
Well, some of us will claim credit to the fact that we are popular, but key is the character of our candidate. First, his character was essential to salvage the country. The country was in so much crisis, financially, security-wise, in every ramification.
This is the victory that is completely due to the support of the people. The normal elites, those who normally decide things, were all against this movement, and it came to victory. And I knew the country needed Buhari, and it has got it now. It is one of the best moments in my life. I didn't know I was going to be part of the government, but the fact that Buhari has won was just enough for me as a cause for happiness for this nation.
I remember that very, very day when the announcement was made. He from his office in lobby to upstairs, he came down to my office, and I look at him, in the he was looking in the ceiling in very pensive mood. After some 1 or 2 minutes, I said, "Sir, I would not like to congratulate you. I would rather pity you." He said, "Thank you. Thank you." So we went out, back to his office.
He is a man of inflexible integrity. He is also a very simple man, a very religious man, and also dedicated to Nigeria. If he has political views, is that Nigeria together is the best for all the peoples.
He's a man of his words. He's a man of honor. He's a man of courage. He's a man of uprightness. He's a no-nonsense man. He has never, for once that I know him, done anything that will advance his selfish interests, either for himself as a person, for friends, for family.
He believes in the ultimate goodness of each and every Nigerian, including those of us who work with him. Yes, he will discuss challenges with you, but ultimately he always believes that you will do the right thing.
Muhammad Buhari, he listens a lot. He is not too much in a hurry to take decisions, and he is also very considerate. So Nigeria is a very complex place. You need to take measured decisions because every decision you take will impact on the lives of people. So, but he is a very, very thorough leader. There are so many adjectives you can use to describe Buhari, but truly, he is a leader whose time has come, and he has led this country very, very well.
Under no circumstances, the leader will probably be sending his people or be asking you to do this for him. Buhari has never sent anybody to me in the last 7 years to do anything for him or for the person.
I've had the privilege of serving 7 Nigerian presidents in my public career. The styles of leaderships are different, the circumstances are different, but as a boss, he supports, he gives you the resources to do your work. You can say anything about him or his policies, but nobody doubts his integrity and his commitment to ensure that public resources are very well managed, and that he cares about all parts of the country, including those that may not have voted for him, conspicuously not voted for him in several elections that he has undergone in this country.
His driver took me from his house to go to Governor El-Rufai's house. And when we got to El-Rufai's house in Kaduna, his driver said, "Daddy," he was referring to me, "I'd like you to pray with me." I said, "I beg your pardon." He said, "I call you Daddy." I said, "I do not pray the Muslim prayer. I can only pray for you as a Christian." He said, "I'm a Christian. I'm a member of Ekwa Church and I'm born again. I've been driving him for 10 years. This is the 3rd or so electoral process that I've driven him." I said, "You are a Christian?" He said, "Yes." I prayed with him. That was very shocking to me. Second thing that I received as a shocker, a serious shock, we did the first flag off in Kaduna. It was such a mammoth crowd. And if anyone we pushed that day, there would be a serious stampede. And then after the flag off, we got to his home and he staggered. And he said, "Jesus Christ of Nazareth." I said, "Excuse me, sir?" Because I would have said, "Is that a swear word?" And he looked at me and said, "Pastor, you don't have monopoly of Jesus Christ." I said, "Okay." I calmed down, I left it. Then we were in Abuja. And early morning I was going to his hotel apartment, Presidential Suite at Transcorp Hilton, and I met his bodyguards at the door. And one of them said, "Good morning, sir." "Good morning, Daddy." I said, "Why do you call me Daddy?" He said, "You are our grandfather, actually, because our pastor is your son in the faith. We go to Lighthouse." And I said, what kind of a man is this? Never at once try to hinder my faith or to try to say, to be irritated by me. And all around him, a cook and this and that were Christians.
So how do you cope with Abuja if Daura is noisy sometimes?
No, Abuja, I'm effectively protected by security and COVID-19. You see? Security wouldn't allow people to be seeing me. They said because of COVID. So I am thanking the security and COVID.
Where do you find the energy? You'll be 80 in December.
Yes.
You walked from the mosque today. You've walked almost an hour now. So where do you find this energy? I mean, I'm younger and I'm tired.
Yes. If you are a village man like me, I think you would have been stronger.
There's a crazy one that was going around at one time that you are not Buhari. Did you hear about that one?
Yes, people said I'm somebody from Sudan. They even still mention the name. I didn't bother. Nigerians, when they don't understand things, they create their own mysterious way of explaining themselves.
Does it help that you have your sense of humor to find those things funny?
No, it's not funny because those who are advocating or who are making those statements, they just want to be cheeky. They want to distract attention from the main issue. Our main issue is do the infrastructure, make people aware that they need to work hard to live well. They just can't you know, enjoy life without earning the respect of their communities and so on.
After you leave the presidency,
yes,
what are you going to miss the most about the presidency?
I wonder if I'm going to miss much. I think I'm being harassed. I believe myself that I'm trying my best, but still my best is not good enough, because there are people around that think that they can intimidate authorities to get what they want instead of going through established systems, you know, and earn whatever they want to earn. There are still people who want to, who behave, who are clever by half, let me put it that way. When I left secondary school, I came back here. This is my base. Coup, counter-coup, civil war, coup, counter-coup, detention. I have gone through it all. I have tried hard enough. I think I have tried hard enough. The results are obvious, and I'm praying very hard that I will end up well.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the President of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On TV360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grants for ranching.
TV360, dissecting the issues.
Hello and welcome to the program. I am Deji Badimasi. Now, 3 weeks after a dramatic round of presidential and National Assembly elections, Nigerians trooped out again to cast their votes now for the candidates of their choice in the governorship and State House of Assembly polls nationwide. That election, of course, took place March the 18th. Out of 28 states where governorship elections took place, the Independent National Electoral Commission has so far announced 26 winners, or governors-elect, if you like. Now, the election in 2 states, Kebbi and Adamawa, were declared inconclusive. As to be expected, there were some upsets in the governorship election, and the biggest one is that of Zamfara State, where the governor, Bello Matawalle of the APC, lost his second-term bid to the candidate of the PDP, Dauda Lawal. Now, not many people saw that coming. In fact, Matawale is the only sitting governor who lost a second-term bid in this cycle of election. All the other governors seeking second terms won. Now, many had expected the Labour Party was going to build on the momentum now it gathered during the presidential election and probably win some state governorship election, but that did not happen. The party was only able to win one state, with the ruling All Progressives Congress APC taking most of the states, followed by the main opposition People's Democratic Party, now PDP, winning the rest. Now, the biggest talking point of the election is a series of violence that trailed the governorship and state assembly election across the country. According to the European Union Observer Group, the violence claimed at least 21 lives. It's really sad. There were also cases, I should say, of voter intimidation reported in states like Lagos. But by and large, the election went on peacefully in most places across Nigeria. We now wait for the supplementary election in both Kebbi and Adamawa states to finally conclude this election cycle. So we'll wait for when INEC, of course, will fix those inconclusive elections. Let's now look at some of... we just take a deeper look now into how the governorship election actually played out. I'm now being joined on the program by three gentlemen to help us dissect the results and dissect the outcome of the election in some of the states. Now, I have here in the studio Dayo Akintobi, who is a political affairs analyst. Dayo, thank you for making it once again, and you've been with us throughout this process. Thanks for coming around again.
Always a pleasure to be here.
And then we have Libros Oshoma, who is a political affairs analyst and a lawyer as well. Libros, thank you as always for making it. First off, let me start with you, Dayo. How would you assess the governorship election generally?
Well, all told, I think it went quite well, actually, considering the fact that only one of the incumbents actually lost and all the others were able to return, except for the states where governors had completed their second term. Of course, as you mentioned, it was rather a disappointment to the Labour Party that it wasn't able to fare much better in the governorship and State House of Assembly elections, which kind of goes to show that Peter Obi was really the lightning rod for the obedient movement, and that once he was out of the picture in the presidential race, that momentum couldn't be sustained to help win governorship seats and State House of Assembly seats. I also think the extra 1 week delay that INEC added to the time for the election may also have done something to dampen the momentum of the Labour Party. So I think that's the big story that's really coming out of this second election, is the fact that the Labour Party didn't do as well as it did in the presidential election.
Libros, do you share that same sentiment that, you know, that the Labour Party may probably have done better if this election had taken place the way INEC had originally scheduled it, if there had been no postponement?
Yeah, I do also, I don't think so. Because let's look at, if Obi had won the presidential election, that zeal, that momentum would have been there to continue, even if the governorship election were postponed 3 weeks or even 4 weeks after. You know, because the movement would be encouraged. But with what happened with the presidential election, the issue with the inability to upload results, that was one area where, you know, a lot of persons who felt they had hope in the system, you know, that dampened their hope. Secondly, also, a lot of them felt, some of the candidates, take the Benue governorship candidate of the Labour Party, for example, who had traversed the length and breadth of the...
Haman Hembe.
You know, from PDP to APC.
Different parties.
And then to Labour. So a lot of them felt, you know, you could describe it as, in Nigerian parlance, what you call problem change name. So these are the same people who had been, you know, in the major political parties, really trying to ride on the goodwill of Peter Obi. If you also, you know, look at a disagreement between the Labour candidate, between some of the obedience on the Labour candidate in Enugu State, for example, and the ABGA candidates. You know, some of them felt the ABGA candidate was more credible, you know, unlike Abia, where the Labour candidate had consistently been on ground since 2015. He's fought that
on a
battle
different platform.
On a different platform. He was in ABGA, you know, until ABGA became a cash and carry, you know, for politicians.
I think he contested. Did he contest on the platform of PPA or something? Because I know he contested 2015.
No, he was in ABGA in 2015.
And 2019.
And 2019 he was in ABGA, and it wasn't easy for him because most of the slots or the positions were on cash and carry basis, and so that didn't work heavily in his favor. And then coupled with the fact that
let me quickly ask you something about Abia, even though we're still going to talk about it. What do you think worked for Alex Otti? Do you think the mere fact that he was running this time on the platform of the Labour Party was just enough to give him that seat?
No. Alex Otti in 2015, if you remember, lost that election narrowly. A lot of people, you know, supported him. The fact that...
but he didn't do well in 2019.
No, he didn't. 2019, he didn't do well at all. The fact that Orji Okalu didn't do well as a governor, followed by Theodore Orji, who took the ball, you know, even far lower than it was. Aba became like a heap of dustbin,
and then
you know.
And
then Okezie Ekpeazu came. They were seeing the good works of the governor of Ebonyi State, and they were always consistently comparing. So, you know, I was in Abia, if you remember the stories.
Yes, exactly.
You know, so... And so all of those things, it fired up the people when Alex Otti came again. And coupled with the fact that he was campaigning on the platform of a Labour Party, you had Obi. So that also encouraged a lot of people. So Alex Otti was already, you know, fully on ground in Abia thanks to the, you know, misgovernance of the PDP-led government. So that's little push from
and that misgovernance lasted for a very long
time. A very long time.
Let's look at... you know, let's take a deeper look now at some of the results. In the Southwest, of course, governorship election only happened in 3 states, and these are the states: Lagos, Ogun, and Oyo. Now, the other states' governorship election did not happen because, I mean, they've had their elections there earlier, so they had off-cycle elections. So let's look at the outcome of the election here in Lagos. The PDP was expected to give the APC a run for its money. But something happened. When Obi won the presidential election here, the conversation simply shifted. Attention shifted to the Labour Party. You know, people started talking less about the PDP candidate. And there you have the results. Are you surprised at the outcome?
Yes, I am. Actually had expected Labour to be more competitive in Lagos in light of the way the presidential went. But I think APC and some of the other detractors of the Labour Party played the ethnicity card very well, managed to cast the Labour candidate, governorship candidate in Lagos, managed to cast him as an outsider and not an indigenous Lagosian, and they played the ethnic card successfully. And well, you mentioned the PDP. Of course, Labour's entrance into the race was a negative for the PDP because every single vote that would have gone the PDP's way went the Labour Party's way. So that kind of was a knockout blow for the PDP to begin with. But the main issue focusing on the Labour Party is why they didn't perform to the level of expectation, or at least commensurate with what
you don't think
happened.
They did very well by getting this amount of vote? 312 is no mean feat.
Well, juxtapose that with how they did in the presidential, and this looks poor. If you look at the fact that not only did they...
But you don't think the issues this time for the governorship are different, and that you have different candidates now running, and so, you know, when the voters come into the governorship election, they think differently?
Well, no, because I think the groundswell of support that the Labour Party got, it was kind of an adherence to an ideology. It was a movement. It didn't really seem to have much to do with the individual candidate. It seemed like they were tired of business as usual. They wanted a fresh breath of air. They wanted somebody different. They wanted a new ideology. And that was what played out in the presidential. So even though, yes, Peter Obi was a lightning rod in the presidential, but he represented a wind of change, which we thought would carry over into the governorship. But what I'm saying is that the APC managed to play their cards right. In those 3 weeks, they managed to demonize the Labour Party candidate. They managed to dilute the essence of what the Labour Party stood for, and they successfully warded off the challenge at the polls.
Libros, do you think this was a case of the APC demonizing the Labour Party candidate and playing the ethnic card, and that's what gave them victory in Lagos?
Much more than that, because also, mind you, the Labour candidate had accused the APC of voter suppression, that in areas where they tagged as their stronghold, the stronghold of their supporters, especially also people from the southeastern part of Nigeria, that there were voter suppression, there were violence in these areas, and that so ordinarily that these people would have voted for them. So these are some of the issues that they have raised. And then also, we also saw that during the presidential election, votes, actually for Labour came from these areas. But there are also challenges. Some persons have also said that, unlike the presidential election race, there were certain persons that were not happy with the Muslim ticket of the presidential candidate of the APC, but that were comfortable with the governorship candidate of the APC in Lagos. And then, once that ethnic card was played, it was almost like, because also the Labour didn't calculate, it was a very wrong calculation for them also. Immediately after the presidential election, the presumption was that, certain persons gave, the votes.
Certain ethnic groups.
And then, all of a sudden...
And you got the impression like the Labour Party was trying to appeal to that ethnic group.
That ethnic group.
So
and
all of a sudden his mother was brought into
Chinedu added to the name and, all of that of the candidate. And so it became a very good weapon for, the APC to demonize the candidate. And then you saw old women also, some persons that also didn't vote earlier on from the Arewa stock also, certain persons who felt they were not appealed to. And then couple also give it to the governor. He went round almost everywhere. That 1 week extension gave him an opportunity to go around every corner, appeal to everybody that needed to be appealed to. And so you saw a lot of them coming out to say, you know what, this time around we are not going to fold our hands. So if you put the numbers, you see that actually a lot of people, also actually came out. But quickly, if you permit me, Ogun State, because it is the same, same region, what happened, if you look at the two major candidates, the PDP candidate and then the APC candidate, are from the same Remo, So a lot of Remo votes went for, a lot of the Jebu votes went to the PDP candidate because the idea and the impression was that another person from Remo, would get a fresh start, probably 8 years.
8 years.
But the Yelwa group, felt, the ADC candidate is a Yelwa, supported by the former governor, but they felt that
That's Amosu.
Yes, Amosu. And they felt that that candidate might not have the right support. So what they did was to support the incumbent on the belief that all the incumbent will just do 4 years. Yes, after the 4 years of the incumbent, then naturally, he also will support a Yelwa candidate because they never produced a governor. So that was why you saw the margin, very slim. And then for Oyo, we know what happened in Oyo, how, that alliance, that deal between the APC presidential candidate and the governorship candidate. That was why I think Teslim was the first, to hurriedly congratulate
and concede defeat.
Concede defeat. Because a lot of people missed the point and, just went, concluded that it was all about performance.
Dayo, very briefly, because we just have to go to the next geopolitical zone, but very briefly now. I still want us to talk about Lagos. The PDP candidate, before the presidential election, everyone thought this was going to be a straight fight between the APC and the PDP. I mean, the PDP candidate was very much in the equation, but things changed after the presidential election. Why do you think the PDP candidate performs this badly?
Well, remember that he originally started out in the APC, And
Yes.
it was due to some differences of opinion and disgruntlement that he moved to the PDP. And it wasn't very long before the elections that he actually moved. So whether he was able to win the support of
No, he did move, because, I mean, this is someone I know very well. I know he started campaigning like 2 years before now.
Not in the PDP, though.
Yeah, not in the PDP.
Right.
Yes, you're correct, not in the PDP. But even in the PDP, when he left, I mean, this individual campaigned very hard. I dare say even much harder now than the LP candidate. But
without a doubt. But what it goes to show is that campaigning is not the only thing that wins you elections. There's a whole lot more to winning elections. For example, the incumbent ran on his record. That gave him some momentum. Then the person who came second ran on this whole groundswell of NSAS, the youth, the obedient factor. He ran on that notion of youth, change, breath of fresh air. What exactly did the PDP candidate have to offer that was any different? First of all, it's from the same stock of people we've seen in Lagos for the last 24 years. He really didn't have anything different to offer from what was already on the table.
Do you share that sentiment, Libros? Very quickly.
If you remember, over time, the southeastern part of Nigeria had consistently, followed PDP from 1999 till date. And if you look at some areas where even voter suppressions, were occasioned, the PDP had always, these are their stronghold. Gbadebo also, mind you, came from the PDP. So that is splitting the votes of the PDP. And then there was in-house fighting in the PDP at the center. But the George also, who was also fingered as, one of the supporters, strong supporters of Gbadebo, was in PDP. He remained in PDP in Lagos. These are people.
But he later moved to Labour. He later went to back the Labour Party.
Yes, he was in PDP, but was backing the Labour candidate because these are people you expect ordinarily over time consistently had been the mobilizers of the PDP. But here you have an APC, a former APC candidate, coming to PDP, clinching the ticket of the PDP, and then picking a running mate who was not a politician at all, who said she had 20 million followers on social media. And these 20 million followers, a lot of them might be abroad, not even in Lagos. So against all of this, when you now take a large chunk, you take a large chunk of the traditional PDP people who now moved with Obi, because mind you, Obi left PDP also, who moved with Obi to Labour. And then you now have, these people traditionally with the presidential election result voting for Labour. It was obvious that PDP will have to reinvent itself to actually, sell their candidate. And like my colleague has said, there was nothing really to reinvent. So it became a very flat one. And even some of the PDP members complained that Labour were actually harvesting their votes.
All right, so let's quickly take a short break now, but we'll be right back to breeze through the other geopolitical zones and see how the election there played out and what actually influenced the outcome. So stay with us, don't go away, we'll be right back.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
The president must see himself as the president of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On TV360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world. A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
TV360, dissecting the issues.
Welcome back. Now, if there was one region everyone had expected the Labour Party to probably clear just during the governorship election now, that region would be the Southeast region. But it just didn't play out that way. Of course, the Labour Party tried, but at the end of the day, it was only able to get just one state. And that state, it was a tough fight, I must tell you, because, I mean, at some point, INEC had to shift the collation of results in that state now. That's Abia State by 24 hours. I still have Libros Oshoma and Dayo Akintobi here with me. Libros, you look at what played out in the southeast of the country. This is one region that many people had expected, especially after the presidential election, with the way Peter Obi swept the southeast. I mean, many people had expected it was going to be a clean sweep for the Labour Party in the governorship election, but it didn't play out that way.
Yeah, you see, if you look at Enugu State, for example, all the three major candidates from PDP, Labour, and APGA were all from a Bano family, political family. You know, the three of them served in the government of Chimaroke Namani. One was nominated as a minister, Frank Weke Jr., and the rest were in the government. And so it's almost as if, you know, it's a battle on familiar terrain. They were also, like I said earlier on, no unanimous agreement between, you know, the obedient members of the obedient group who you know, consistently had maintained that they are not members of Labour, you know, on the candidate in Enugu. So some had said, look, Frank Weke Jr. of the APGA. And then you also have the agitation from some members in some persons that the PDP candidate was from Ebonyi State, that an Ebonyi man could not come to contest and run election in Enugu, that his great-grandparents migrated from Ebonyi. You know, those allegations were there during the campaign. But that power of incumbency and that 2 weeks window also gave them an opportunity to also, you know, cover a lot of grounds. But one thing is very instructive that I have noticed among the southeastern voters. They are very Republican. They tell you Igboenweze, you know, so they don't have one leader who will direct, you know, unlike the Southwest, where to go. A lot of them supported Obi for presidency because they also believe that it was the turn of the Southeast to produce, you know, the number one person.
But when it came to other elections, they went to their different bases.
After that, they went back to their different individuals. They don't like
Could that also be the reason why, for instance, in Anambra State, where Peter Obi comes from, I mean, his party didn't do well in the state assembly elections.
Yeah, because...
It was only able to win 4 seats. APGA still dominated.
Yes, because for the Anambra man, for example, an Anambra man can follow you, but will not want you to dictate to him. Yeah, for the presidential election, they gave it all to Peter Obi. But in the governorship election, they all went back to their individual camps and candidates. The only reason why even the speaker lost the election to the Labour candidate was because they had a zoning arrangement that, look, it's a turn-by-turn thing in his area. And so, but he insisted on going for a third term. And that's why the people rally around, you know, the young man in Labour, and he defeated him there. So, but if you look at the numbers generally, what this spoke volume to say, look, we still know our people, so we know who, you know, we want. And Peter Obi is not on the ballot. Peter Obi is not going to control some of these persons. They know them. They might just be riding on the name of Peter Obi. And then for Ebonyi, you know, the governor in Ebonyi has performed creditably well. You know, Umahi performed, built bridges, turned Ebonyi into, you know, what you call a small, you know,
one of the best performing governors
in the
Southeast country.
And that cost the Abia State governor a lot of problems, headache. So he also did not allow Labour to even take roots in Ebonyi. He didn't allow Labour to take roots in Ebonyi. And so consistently, he's giving them, you know, a tough battle. And so that's why you saw that Ebonyi was easy for PDP, APC, sorry. Then Abia.
We've talked about
Abia, and it was for Alesoti to lose, but finally he took it this time.
And of course, the PDP's performance over the years in Abia State didn't help matters at all. But tell me, Dayo, you look at the Southeast, the outcome of the election in the Southeast. What's your take?
Well, I agree with Liberals. I think the fact that the Southeast believed it was their turn, that is long overdue. And it's not just the Southeast. Remember, Afenifere also stood on the grounds that it's the
faction
turn
of Afenifere, some would say.
Yes, a faction. Well, some would say it's the Afenifere, some would say it's just a splinter group, who knows? Only they internally know what their leadership structure is all about. But yeah, a lot of people believe that in the interest of justice, fairness, and equity, that it is long overdue for the Southeast to have produced the president. And so the indigenous of the Southeast themselves rallied around that cause in the presidential. And so it was almost homogeneously, maniacally focused in one direction for the presidential. But as Libro said, everybody now reverted to their comfort zones when it came to the governorship and the State House of Assembly. Personal, individual interests of where I am from, where the candidate is from, what the incumbent did when he was there, what the divisions are between the various parties. All those things came to bear in the smaller governorship and State House of Assembly, where the opinion was that there was a whole lot less to lose than at the presidential level. So I think that's what we saw playing out with those distorted numbers. Well, not distorted, but unbalanced numbers that we saw in the Southeast.
All right, let's take a look at the next zone now very quickly, the South-South zone. Libros, would you say it's a surprise that the PDP won Rivers State? For me, I don't think it's a surprise. But you look at Delta as well. So, Libros, give us your thoughts. Delta and Rivers.
Yeah, with what happened in, let me start from Delta. With what happened in the governorship, presidential election in Delta, where the Labour candidate, made a very strong presence, and that 1 week extension, we always talk about the 1 week extension. The PDP was demoralized.
And the Labour Party was a no-show in Delta. Look at the amount of votes it got there.
The PDP was demoralized. It was as if the Labour Party candidate, Pella, it was as if it was sponsored. Because you find out that for the governorship election, you would expect him to ride on the popularity of the obedient movement and the Labour candidate, presidential candidate. But it also seems as if the Labour presidential candidate was not interested in the politics of Delta, because he visited quite a number of other states, but I cannot remember him stopping over, in Delta states to even help in a campaigning in Delta, just the same way he did in Lagos. So it became a battle between the PDP and the APC. The Bori faction in PDP were not too happy with the COA faction. We also learned that they splitted into two. Some went to Labour, some went to APC. Omo Agege banked on the fact that he was going to get, the vote from the Central. But what the result has shown is that Ogboru, who had consistently, been on the ballot and a candidate for that election since, I think, 2003.
Ogboru was candidate of APGA in this election.
So,
but he didn't make any show.
Yes, it was as if Ogboru, when Ogboru was on the ballot, he took more shine. And then another thing is that the two candidates of the PDP, the two major candidates, Sheriff Oboroweri and Omo Agege, are from the same Urobo. So it was like, the Urobos will have to share votes. And you saw it in Omo Agege's numbers. But for the Ishekiris and the Delta North, where what do you call it, Okowa came from, they rallied around Sheriff.
Obviously.
And so it was obvious that the numbers came from these places. And so that was how, that went. But for Cross River, the governor, if you notice, the anger of the people in Cross River had consistently been against Ayade as Ayade's performance. In Cross River State, he was the only senator in the APC that lost his senatorial zone
but he
to
played
the PDP.
A smart card this time.
Yes, but for this time, because for the senatorial election, the APC got 2/3.
Yes.
And Ayade lost the election. And so it was also, very convenient for them to also work on the fact that they had, they have two senators in the kitty. And if they concentrated on just those two places, and then just a little numbers from Ayade's zone, definitely we're going to coast home. And so that was what, they did. And considering the fact, considering the fact also that you have a lot of House of Assembly members who also, had left for the Senate, like the former speaker or the current speaker is a senator-elect. The deputy speaker also is going to the House of Rep. So all of these people, also worked to ensure that, the state is retained. So it becomes easy for them.
Something I just needed to point out in Cross River is the fact that, look, the issue of zoning too played a very critical role in Cross River because, Basiotu, of course, from, I think from Cross River South, and then Sandy Ono from Cross River Central. And, the general feeling is that, look, after leaving the north, that the governorship should come to Cross River South.
Yes.
And, of course, Cross River South is where Donald Duke
came from.
But Donald Duke was not supporting the APC candidate, and his people were not happy at all. And, the bulk of the voters you find are in Cross River South.
South, yes. That's Calabar, Calabar Municipal, and the Modi Dupani areas and all of that.
Exactly.
Quickly, lastly, for time, let me quickly talk about the Akwa Ibom. Akwa Ibom, you also know the candidate of the YPP was, that's Basi Albert, was the one that actually stepped down for the outgoing governor, now Udom Emmanuel, with the belief that he would be handed over the ticket of the PDP come 2023. But that is not to be, and so he moved to YPP. So that's why you see the numbers of, an unknown party in Akwa Ibom, YPP coming second. And then the happy hour candidate of the PDP.
Now that's a problem. Maybe this man should not have said that at all, Dio. Maybe he shouldn't have said that. I mean, because this may eventually define his governorship. But Dio, tell me, are you surprised with the way things played out in Rivers?
Well, overall, let's talk about the South generally altogether as a voting bloc. Historically, since 1999. They've always skewed one way in particular. And what I'm seeing from looking at, taking a bird's eye view of the entire result now, is that that hegemony of one particular party in the South and the Southeast has been broken to pieces, because now you see for the first time you start seeing different parties not just making a good showing, but actually getting elected in the South and the Southeast. You see APC getting elected. You see Labour Party also winning one seat. You see YPP doing well. So it seems as if now all of a sudden that lock that the PDP had in the South and the Southeast is finally broken for good. Now, looking at Rivers specifically, we know the role that Governor Wike played in that whole Rivers politics. Now, apart from him spearheading the G5 to move away from their presidential candidate, some of us actually advocated the principle that it might be a bit complicated to try and tell unsophisticated voters to choose one particular logo for presidential and different logos for the different other elections. So we were predicting that, well, voters, this is leading to voter confusion. And it's the way you told them to vote in the presidential that they'll vote down the line completely, all that same logo all the way. But obviously, Governor Wike knew what we didn't know, to the extent that he was confident that his people would not vote for the PDP candidate, but when it came to the governorship, they would vote for his own anointed candidate, and it played out that way. So maybe Wike is a political guru.
Probably, yes, it's true. You could accuse Wike of talking too much, but you also cannot accuse him. You can't accuse him of a non-performance because he's obviously performed. Libros, we have to go on a short break, so I want you to be just brief on this. One issue I want you to speak to is in Rivers State, where the APC again lost. This is the third time now. I mean, I want you to speak to what this means now, this defeat means for the former Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi. He got a candidate to run against Wike in 2015. He lost. In 2019, he lost, and he's just lost again in 2023. I'm just wondering what that would mean for his political career.
Yeah, quickly, apart from the violence that a lot of people, including the APC, complained of in Rivers State, and all the allegations of under what do you call it now, manipulations levied against Wike. In 2015, there was an allegation Amechi made. 2015, the day before the election, he was all over the place shouting, "Where are the results? Where are the results?" And he said something instructive, that in this place, in some of the riverine areas, we don't vote. It is the man with the results that wins the election. These are allegations he made. And then in that election, we saw, the violence, the protests that erupted after. The matter even went as far as the Supreme Court on issue of overvoting. Remember, card readers were used.
Yes.
And then the Supreme Court said, since card readers was not part of the Electoral Act, overvoting can only be reckoned with the voters' register. That laid that petition to rest. And also one key factor that consistently played against Amechi, apart from the fact that Wike took the money of the state, to develop the state. And people are asking, so what has Amechi been doing all of this while? The betrayal that some persons felt that Amechi betrayed one of theirs, which was Goodluck Jonathan. He was one of those arrowhead that led people away from PDP to APC. So that also had consistently been one of the reasons some persons will never forgive him. And the fact that he left to Abuja and abandoned some of his political children. Remember, Dr. Chidi Lloyd was one of those who followed him, who was almost killed in that Evans BNP crisis. But eventually he went back to Wike, and so many other persons like that. So Amechi, before the election, you didn't see Amechi strongly out in the, in the rain, in the sun, campaigning for the candidate of Tonyeko. It was almost as if Tonyeko was abandoned, or even by Amechi, until after the presidential
that Amechi came
out. After the presidential election that Amechi came out and suddenly found his voice. And so it was too late in the day at that time for him to be talking to the people, unlike Wike, who was the spokesperson of his party. He was the governor, and he was everything. So if Amechi had, joined Tonyeko right from the beginning, I think this lost to Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu at the presidential primaries also cost him a lot of, maybe
he became sort of withdrawn after losing.
to withdraw, he became reticent, and so that affected the outcome. It was only Tonyeko in Rivers State. He's not seen as a grassroots politician, even though he had appealed, to a lot of the people. But his backer, another thing they used to.
Glad to have you join us on News Now this morning. I am Simisola Adigun. The Department of State Services, DSS, has announced that it has intercepted some criminal gangs in various parts of the country. Disclosing this on Sunday, the police say it carried out a joint operation with sister security agencies in Kogi State on March 26 and intercepted a 6-man criminal gang at Gegu Beki along the Lokoja-Abuja Road. According to the spokesperson to the agency, Peter Afunaya, items recovered from the members are 1 pump action rifle, 4 cartridges, 1 AK-47 empty shells, and the sum of 42,490 naira. Afunaya added that the service will continue to collaborate with appropriate stakeholders to curb crime in the country. At least 120 kidnapped victims have been rescued in the last 2 weeks in various military operations in Borno and Kaduna states. The Director, Defense Media Operations, Major General Musa Dambadami, made the disclosure during the bi-weekly briefing at the Defense Headquarters. Dambadami added that troops of Operation Wellstroke neutralized 14 terrorists, arrested 12 terrorist logistics suppliers, and rescued 16 abducted civilians.
On 14th March 2023, troops conducted clearance operations to terrorist enclave within Ngara local government area of Borno State. During the operation, troops made contact with Boko Haram and Islamic State of West African Province terrorists, and following the firefight, 6 terrorists were neutralized. Troops exploited general area and recovered 3 AK-47 rifles, 10 den guns, 12 dummy rifles, 118 rounds of 7.62mm by 50mm NATO ammunition, 10 rounds of 7.62mm by 54mm NATO ammunition, 1 round of 12.7mm NATO ammunition, 41 livestock, 2 mobile phones, and the sum of 4,000 naira only. Troops also rescued 49 kidnapped civilians, comprising of 26 adults and 23 children. Additionally, between 15 and 22nd March 2023, troops on fighting patrol to Boko Haram and Islamic State of West African Province enclave at villages within Biu, Goza, and Bama local government areas of Borno State had an encounter with terrorists. Following a fierce firefight, troops neutralized 7 terrorists and arrested 5. Troops exploited these various locations and recovered 4 AK-47 rifles, 7 AK-47 magazines, 1 60mm mortar bomb, 1 firing pin, 102 rounds of 7.62mm special ammunition, 2 donkey, 10 mobile phone, 10 sachets of Anzol tablet, 199 sachets of Tramadol tablets, and the sum of 4,370 naira only, as well as rescued 64 kidnapped victims.
Meanwhile, the Nigerian army has formally dismissed a Reuters report of alleged mass abortion of 10,000 pregnancies, the massacre of children, and other allegations of sexual and gender-based violence against the army. The Chief of Army Staff, Farouk Yahaya, issued the denial on Saturday in Abuja while testifying before a panel set up by the National Human Rights Commission, NHRS, to investigate the matter. Yahaya said the military has a key goal of combating insurgents and restoring peace in the troubled region. Therefore, he could not have embarked on the secret abortion program alleged in the Reuters report. He also challenged the international media outlet to substantiate the claims with full proof. Fresh crisis erupted in the opposition People's Democratic Party (PDP) on Sunday, as the Benue State chapter of the party's ward executive suspended the party's national chairman Iyorchia Ayu. In the letter, the executive members claimed that Ayu worked against the success of the party in Igyorov ward in the 2023 general election. Ayu's suspension letter, dated March 24, was signed by 12 executive members of Igyorov ward of Boko local government area, Benue State. Ayu hails from Benue State. Ayu's suspension came barely a few days after the party's National Working Committee referred the state governor, Samuel Otom, to the party's disciplinary committee for probe over alleged anti-party activities. Reacting to the development, Governor Nyesom Wike of Rivers State, to express support for Ayu's suspension, added that Ayu played a major role in the colossal failure of the PDP in the 2023 general elections. To electoral matters now, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has announced it will issue certificates of return to governors, deputy governors-elect, and state houses of assembly members-elect from March 29 to 31. Festus Okoye, INEC's National Commissioner for Information, in a statement, said the presentation of certificates will take place in the Commission's offices in each of the states. He added that specific dates for the issuance of certificates will be communicated to those elected by the resident electoral commissioners and administrative secretaries of the various states. The governorship candidate of the All Progressives Congress, APC, in Adamawa State, Aishatu Ahmed, also known as Binani, has demanded a review of the results of the March 18 governorship election in 16 local government areas of the state. Binani said the election was marred with violence, rigging, overvoting, and all sorts of irregularities, adding that her lawyers had written INEC to get a review of the election results within 7 days based on the constitutional provisions. The Independent National Electoral Commission has declared the governorship election in the state inconclusive, with a plan for supplementary elections in 69 polling units. The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, Parliament has attributed the poor access to reliable, sustainable and affordable energy in the region to the challenges of insecurity and lack of funding. The Speaker, Sidi Tunis, disclosed this at a 5-day joint parliamentary committee in Freetown, Sierra Leone, with the theme, Building the Regional Energy Market for a Just Energy Transition. Tunis decried the awful lot of about 180 million West Africans subjected to poor distribution capacity and called for a joint effort by member nations in providing sustainable solutions to the challenges.
If you look at the past 20 years, in the year 2000, our electricity access was just about 35%. And if you look at the electricity access in 2020, you will see that we have reached 60% access. It means it's taking us 20 years to double our electricity access. And if you look at this increase, if you compare it with other parts of the world, our progress was very slow. Again, if you look at the access that we have achieved, what you realize is that majority of these access are centralized in urban centers. So if you look at most of the ECOWAS member countries, only 3 ECOWAS member states, that is Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, and Cape Verde, have been able to achieve over 50% electricity access in their rural communities. So overall, about 163 million people in West Africa do not have access to electricity.
Out of 35 constitutional alteration bills passed by the State House of Assembly, President Muhammadu Buhari has signed into law 16 of them, seeking to amend various parts of the 1999 Constitution. The Joint Senate and House of Representatives Special Ad Hoc Committee on the Review of the 1999 Constitution made this known on Friday. Reacting to the signing, Public Affairs Analyst Jide Ojo described the move by the President as a welcome development and a significant one. He added that it will not only enable states to generate its own revenue, it will also take pressure off the federal government.
Many of us have lost hope that there will even be any alteration after the State Assembly sat on the 35 amendments that, on the, I think 66 or thereabouts that were passed on to them. But eventually we learned in January that 35 met the constitutional threshold of having 2/3 of State Assembly endorsing what the National Assembly has done. For me, those alterations that gave us some measure of devolution of powers was very heartwarming to me. The other one that also makes my heart glad is the constitutionally mandated period within which ministers and commissioners designate have to be named by the president and the state the governors. Recall that in 2015, it took President Buhari about 6 months. I think it was in October or in November of 2015 that he sent the list of his ministerial list to the National Assembly. And even during the second tenure, it took about 3 months. So now it is mandated that within 2 months, 60 days max, you have to submit the list of your commissioner designates if you're a governor or your ministers designates if you're a president.
The Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, says it has sensitized over 11 million vulnerable Lagos residents in its quest to create awareness on the state's social protection policy. Giving details of its two-day review meeting on the effective mechanism for promoting accountability for social protection policy, the group urged the government to do more in delivering benefits of the policy to the people. Our correspondent, Sydney Okafor, has more details in this report.
In March 2022, the Lagos State government unveiled its social protection policy. The aim of the policy, according to the government, was to provide succor to the poor and vulnerable in the state. But roughly a year after, a human rights group, Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, says the policy has not met its desired target. Speaking at the meeting to review the effective mechanism for promoting accountability for social protection in Lagos State, the group says it was able to reach over 11 million residents in its sensitization drive.
We have reached over 11 million people in the state as a result of our radio campaign. And there was even a time that we were getting more than 60 calls a day, but at the time it reduced to 10 calls after the radio campaign programs. We still receive calls from time to time asking us for information about how to access the social protection implementation in the state.
In its review, the group also raised concern about reports of residents denied access to benefits of the social protection policy. They, however, assured that justice will be delivered to the people.
When they go to Alausa and they are turned down, we expect that they feed us back, and then we can explore other measures to see that we hold them accountable. So usually when we get feedback, we call the implementing MDAs to see that they do what is right as far as this is concerned.
For Tolani Ojore, the state chairman of Albinism Association of Nigeria, the lack of awareness on numerous programs established by the state government for people living with albinism is the major challenge.
We were able to identify the gaps that, yes, the government is doing some programs in which these vulnerable citizens, the ones that concern me, are persons with disability, with a major focus on persons with albinism. And we realized that there were some gaps, that the government was doing a lot of programs that people were not aware of. And we brought that to the fore. And that's, to a very large extent, all these gaps were closed.
It's been 3 years since the outbreak of COVID-19 virus, which put a strain on the socio-economic well-being of millions of Nigerians. Initiatives such as social protection policy aims to combat poverty and deprivation at all levels in the society. Sydney Okafor reporting for TV360 Nigeria.
Delegates from 158 anti-corruption, civil society and non-governmental organizations, faith-based groups, as well as youth and community-based organizations have called on President Muhammadu Buhari to strive to leave a legacy of a functioning system where there is respect for the rule of law. Speaking at a one-day national conference on Sunday in Abuja, the CSO said all actors must operate only in full compliance with the Constitution, acts of the National Assembly, and other laws of the country. The speakers also expressed concern that the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, under the leadership of Abdulrashid Bawah, had allegedly become a cesspool of internal corruption, among other diverse issues.
If the headship of an institution is not corrupt or is following the rule of law, nothing will be wrong with the institution. So it's like the leadership is the problem affecting the institutions now. And that's why in the agenda we are setting for the incoming administration of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, we are saying that it should not carry the baggage of the present administration now into its administration. Nigerians need healing. And part of the things that will heal the land is to ensure that those who are posing problems now, when we talk about the violation of rule of law, deliberate disobedience to court orders, look at what Emefiele, the central bank governor, has done in that time. As a matter of fact, it's unheard of in St. Climb that central bank governor will be contesting to be president. Immediately he sought to become, it is his right under the law to seek the highest office in the land. But he should have resigned. Because of this partisanship now, it has affected the running of the economy. Because the central bank is key, is central, is the man to the running of the economy of the country. So if, when he now sought to become the president of the federation now, it has caused dislocation in the system. And as if that was not enough, the Supreme Court of Nigeria, the highest court in the land, created by the Constitution now, gave an order that on the Naira redesign, for 10 days, neither the central bank nor the presidency uttered any statement. And that is awkward in any sane democracy. So we are now calling on the incoming administration of Ahmed Tinubu not to engage any of these officers. And let's look at Bawa. Bawa has flagrantly disobeyed court order, including the ones convicting him. He has not obeyed up to this moment now. And there are other orders of the Supreme Court, all courts, asking him to do one thing or the other that he has disobeyed. So all this, we are saying, are fundamental to the good running of the administration. If these are not done, we should believe that we are just doing roundabout dancing.
The Lagos State Health Commissioner Akin Abayomi has revealed that 52,652 tuberculosis cases were captured at the national level in 4 years. Disclosing this on social media, Abayomi said the state accounts for 11% of TB cases in Nigeria, with an estimated 54,000 persons projected to be suffering from tuberculosis based on the national incidence rate of 219 per 100 population. He said DRTB and XDR-TB account for more severe cases that are difficult to treat, thereby requiring the use of very toxic and expensive medications. Abayomi added that the Babajide Sanwo-Olu administration, in collaboration with its development partners, remain unrelenting in the effort to bring the scourge to an end. We'll go on a break here and return with COVID updates. Stay with us.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the President of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On TV360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world. A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
TV360, dissecting the issues.
Welcome back. Now, in case you missed any of our news bulletins, for more updates, you can catch us on Limex World TV or log on to our website on www.tv360nigeria.com. You can also follow us on our social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at TV360 Nigeria. On Facebook, we're at TV360 Online. U.S. President Joe Biden's order that federal employees get vaccinated against COVID-19 has been blocked by a federal appeals court. The White House had defended the order, citing the high compliance rate among the federal workforce and saying in a statement on Friday that vaccination remains one of the most important tools to protect people from serious illness and hospitalizations against COVID. However, the Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in New Orleans, in a decision on Thursday, rejected arguments that Biden, as the nation's chief executive, has the same authority as the CEO of a private corporation to require that employees be vaccinated. Just 1% of the estimated £1.1 billion lost from the government's COVID business support program in England has, as a result of fraud and error, has been recovered so far. According to reports by the National Audit Office, the latest figures of retrieved money collated by the newly renamed Department for Business and Trade (DBT) show that only £11.4 million of that has been recovered. The report has called for the DPT and Treasury working with councils to draw up formal contingency plans by the end of this year about similar financial support if there is a future national emergency, using the lessons of the COVID scheme. We'll take another break here and return with updates in business, the international scene, as well as sports. Debts by the federal government and private sector has risen to an all-time high of 70 trillion naira, representing a 38% increase year-on-year in February 2023. According to data from the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, total credit to the government rose by a whopping 93% to 28.4 trillion naira as government borrowing increased to shore up fiscal deficits. Private sector borrowing, on the other hand, rose 16% to 41.7 trillion naira, much slower than the general pace of growth in money supply in the country. So far, lending from the central bank to the government has increased in recent years, rising to as high as 22 trillion naira via the ways and means. The oil and gas sector has recorded 36% premium retention in 2022 and ranked as the underwriting sector with the lowest premium retention in the country. The National Insurance Commission, NICOM, disclosed this in its Bulletin of the Insurance Market Performance and Statistics Department quarterly report of the insurance market for the fourth quarter 2022. According to the report, the average premium that the entire insurance companies were able to retain locally stood at 71.3% in the period under review, while the oil and gas portfolio remained a challenging angle in the market owing to its nature of enormous capital and professional requirements. And oil prices stabilized in Asian trade on Monday as investors sought cues from broader financial markets. Brent crude futures held unchanged at $74 a barrel after hitting a session high of $75 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures was at $69 a barrel, up 3 cents after rising to $69 earlier in the session. Analysts say oil marketers are closely watching the sentiment in the financial market, while oil fundamentals remain sidelined. On the global scene, the fiercely outspoken Rwandan government critic Paul Rusesabagina whose efforts to save people during the 1994 genocide inspired the Hollywood film Hotel Rwanda, has been freed from prison after more than 900 days behind bars. The 68-year-old sentence was commuted by presidential order, according to the nation's justice minister, who also warned that commutation of sentence does not extinguish the underlying conviction. Rusesabagina was convicted in September 2021 of backing an armed rebel group after a trial that his supporters denounced as a sham. In sports, Tottenham Hotspur has fired their head coach Antonio Conte, who joined the club 16 months ago. The Spurs announced Conte's exit via a statement on Sunday night. In his first season at Spurs, Conte helped the club achieve Champions League qualification, but Spurs have had a bad run under Conte's watch, especially getting knocked out of the Champions League by AC Milan. The club revealed that Christian Stellini and Ryan Mason will take over as Spurs acting head coach and assistant head coach, respectively, for the rest of the season. Well, that's our bulletin this morning. Many thanks for watching. I am Simisola Ajigun. Bye for now.